Welcome to a very late night and atmospheric recording, where I will talk to you about some of my lived experiences. You see, I grew up in a one-room communist building. I even presented it on this channel, where the walls were thin as paper and you could hear what the neighbor was saying. And one day, a disaster happened. A person from the countryside decided to move in to that particular apartment block. Now, the first thing they did was to play very loud music at the hour of 2 a.m. You see, that person living in a house at the countryside had a different culture. They were used to being able to play music at whatever hour they wanted because there was no one they could bother. So, it was their shock and surprise when the police officers knocked at their door and told it that they need to keep it down or they're going to get fined. Of course, the person then complied. But what I'm trying to say here is that there was a difference of cultures, there was a difference of way of thinking that wasn't tied to any specific race or demographic. It was simply because of the upbringing. The person coming from the countryside, having lived in a house, found it normal to do whatever he wanted at whatever hour he wanted. But now that he was living in a community, a place where he chose to move to, realized that there were certain rules that they had to abide. Would it have been fair for everyone in the apartment building to now change their lifestyle and put up with loud music at 2 a.m. when they had young kids and they had to go up in the morning the next day? Well, the answer is absolutely not. However, in more progressive France, in the enlightened mind of left-leaning people which have a elevated sense of compassion and empathy, they have created a new word. It's called Valium Racismus. You see, Western Europe does value a culture of silence. It's a culture where you are considerate towards other people. And it's not just France. When I went to the United Kingdom on the subway, there was this big plaque when I visited there, which said that the city hall is very concerned with minimizing noise pollution, and they encourage people who are bothered by the sound of the trains to report that to the city hall so that they can see what measures can be taken in order to avoid creating a disturbance. People were also speaking in much softer tones when they were out in public, whether it was the subway or even restaurants. I'm not saying that they were speaking as if they were in a library, but definitely it wasn't the same atmosphere that I had experienced here in Eastern Europe. Here in Romania, people honk their cars all the fucking time, and people speak quite loudly in public, and in restaurants, it's not rare that you can actually hear what the person from the other table likes to say. This is not something to do with race or ethnicity, it's just simply due to different geographical areas where people were born under different cultures. So of course, when you mix people up, the two cultures are going to clash, and one culture is going to have to give in. Just like when the person that lived at a house moved into an apartment building, clashed with the people living there, which wanted silence and he wanted noise, someone had to give in. Well, apparently, in the enlightened minds of progressive individuals, it's the people that live in that country that have to give in. Because you see, in their idea, if I go to Saudi Arabia, it's not my job to become more Saudi Arabian because I chose that destination. I wanted to go and live there. No. Saudi Arabia has now to become more Romanian simply because I am there. I mean, I need to have such privilege with me, and I need to be able to impose my way of life on the people that have lived there for generations. I mean, this is the correct moral way of thinking, and if you don't think like this, then it's politically incorrect, and of course, you're a racist. To say that speaking loudly would be the prerogative of racialized people is an intellectual manipulation, says historian Virginie Giraud, showing that the intelligentsia in France are actually fighting against this nonsense. Because you have a lot of NGOs which have very little to do. I mean, their job is to protect minorities, but it's fucking France. I mean, we're not talking about a failed state. We are talking about the heart and soul of the European Union, where the most enlightened and progressive ideas have stemmed from, where it's the heart of the movement of equality from La France Revolution, right? So in such a country, minorities aren't really oppressed. So when you're an NGO, which receives funding for dealing with oppression, well, you need to find some, even if there isn't any. So you're going to go about bullying people about volume racism. Apparently, what is happening is that there are a lot of people that have immigrated into France, and they have various traditions which we have here in Eastern Europe. A tradition that I am incredibly against, by the way, which is that when someone gets married, all the cars start to honk. Now, while you can say that is sufferable, right, because it's like, well, like a couple of minutes of it, if you are unfortunate enough to live next to the city hall where the marriages are being done and you have people signing the documents, or you happen to live next to the church or the mosque where these things happen, you're going to hear that every fucking day, right? Because not just one wedding. Like, take into account that they can have many weddings, and you can enjoy the honking non-fucking stop. So I can see why people are upset about it, especially if you live in a place where for years people respected each other and they concluded that they want silence. Now, when you want silence, right, you benefit from the silence that other people provide to you, but you also have a responsibility to return the fucking courtesy and be silent in exchange. Now, the thing is, the people who go to France would probably integrate, right? Because they chose France. I mean, they must love the culture of, why else would they go there? So, if they go there, they would integrate if people were to apply social pressure in order to get them to understand that, well, you're in France now, you have to do things this particular way. Just like if I were to go in Saudi Arabia, I'm pretty sure that Saudi Arabians would apply pressure to me, social of course, teaching me that drinking alcohol in public is prohibited. And if I do it in Romania, I can't do it there because they have like a different way of doing things. But if you have all these activist groups that not only encourage the noise pollution, but at the same time they shame the indigenous people of France that have been living there for generations, and they're telling them, no, your way of life needs to change, right, to adapt to the minority. So the majority of people now have to change in order to adapt to the minority. Well, you can see why they encourage the cultural friction. And the same thing has happened in Sweden, and we saw the election results. Similar things have happened in Italy, and we saw the election results. So, I mean, if these activists keep fucking around, eventually they are going to find out come next elections. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you in the comment section. Take care.